It's all good now. Okay, well, in that case, I'm not going to touch anything.
Don't touch nothing. Don't touch
nothing.
nothing.
Nothing. It seems to be I can get you on there, mate, but I can't see myself now, and I'm not risking
I can't see
touching
you either, but it's all right. You know, I've seen enough of your mug at this stage. I'm traumatized enough as it is.
So here we are, guys. Here we are. So this
eventually.
This is the start of the video. Fuck me.
Hey, half an hour in. Yay! I think that's a new record, is it?
There you go. There you go. Wow. Hey, guys. Welcome to this episode of Two Bald Knobs, where laughably we're going to be talking about how GW can't get things right.
We were setting a theme going in. It's like, how frustrating is it? Well,
Marcus says, no overlay today. Marcus, fuck off, man. Well, I ain't touching nothing. You're having a black
I was trying to persuade him to have like the thumbnail in the background or something like that. But you know, it's a miracle we can hear each other.
Drunken Orc says, great lad, see you next time. He's seen enough. No, it's all good, guys. Thank you from the bottom of my heart, man, for all your patience. We really appreciate it. Might have to, once after this video is finished going live and the editing, I might have to cut the beginning bit out at the beginning. Yeah, I knew.
so all of you who showed up early and on time get to have the joy of the shitty frustration we've had thus far.
Hour and a half we've been doing this. We started at 8 o'clock.
Yep.
We did everything right. This is my first time hosting. Usually when we host on my channel, Scar hosts from my channel from his end because I've never really figured out OBS. So I've literally in the last hour and a half had a crash course in how to use it and get this shit figured out. So yeah, hopefully
try and get it sorted.
It's all good. But yeah, there we go. So how are you, buddy?
Well, apart from me tower like bricking it, you know, today, yeah, not too bad. You know, doing all right. Chipping away. I've not gotten much hobby done, sadly, as I've in the process of trying to sort out my room and hobby area. It's due a wallpapering and a repainting, so everything's getting sorted and rejigged, and I keep coming across kits. I was like, oh, I didn't know I had that many of them. You know what I mean?
I hear that.
The usual clear out. Yeah, finding miniatures I haven't found in a while. Oh, I had more of them than I thought. Jesus. You know?
Yes, I've been doing much the same myself, mate. Doing a little bit of hobby, tinkering about here and there. I've been working on this little fella today. Little grot tank, first of them. A little bit more to do. I've got the basics of him all done. I'm just sort of throwing on some details now. So I've got a little bit of Bad Moon logo and glyphs and stuff being added on and spikes, but he's coming along nicely. But once I've got, you know, the little squadron of grot tanks built up, I should of course do like another showcase video of me kit bashes / conversions. But yeah, he's coming along nicely.
Sweet.
But yeah, what are we're chatting about today? We are chatting about updates, the recent update, and I covered very recently, just 2 days ago, the 40k update and the points changes in regards to orcs. Most successful video I've done in a while. Got a lot of views. There's clearly a demand out there for people to want to know what was going on with the points and whatnot, and it was a ball ache to make that video because they released the new updated points and all the FAQs and erratas and everything else, but what they didn't do was sort of compare them sort of side by side with the old points. So it was quite tricky to figure out what exactly had changed and what hadn't. And I thought what I would do to make it easy would be look at the list of the points and compare them with the list of the points on Battlescribe. But Battlescribe seems to be in a state of sort of half updated. So some of the points have been updated, some of them hadn't. So that got confusing. So I was looking through the old Munitorum field manual to compare the old and new. And basically, good old Gear Guts came to my rescue. And he said, oh, listen, I can put them on a spreadsheet for you and I can identify which ones have changed. And did that and helped me out. And I thought possibly it was me being a bit slow. But having done that video and reading the comments section from that video, it seemed many of you are in the same boat of confusion. And I think it speaks to it kind of revealed a larger issue with GW and these updates and the confusion that comes with them and the regularity at which these updates come out. And in posting this live video across social media, across the various Orc groups and the Unification group, the comments section of those posts have been interesting as well. It's been a mixed bag. The debate rages on within those comments sections, and we've got some people are happy that GW are doing these constant updates, and they like the fact that things get fixed and addressed in a prompt manner. And then other people who feel that this is driving them mad and confusing the hell out of them, and they can't keep up. And I think that speaks to both of us, doesn't it, buddy? Then in that, difficulty in keeping up with all these rules changes and points changes and FAQs.
Well, this is the thing. Like, we come at it from an aspect, like, neither of us are really competitive players per se. We don't go to tournaments, so our perspective is going to be slightly skewed in that regard. We're not in the competitive environment, but it pretty much boils down to it being a double-edged sword, where updates are coming hard and fast, which is all well and good if something needs to be nerfed or knocked on the head, but also the other side of that being when updates are too quick. And I think me and you, Stevo, have sort of dealt with it slightly differently, interest-wise, because instead of being enveloped in it a bit more, which I think is the direction you've sort of gone with it, you've sort of dived into it and gone head first and tried to absorb as much of it as you can, as quickly as I can. I've kind of gone in the other direction, in that I've distanced myself a bit. So it comes down to how this is done by design, really. So people are wanting updates more frequently, which is fine, or some folk want the game to slow down in that regard so that you have some consistency, because it's between like the lockdowns that we're going through and the intervals of times between getting games. Like, I've bought the core rulebook when Indominus came out, and I haven't really read it yet, because I know there's no point in me really reading the rulebook until I know I'm going to get a game of 40k in, because I know stuff is going to have changed between buying that book and actually playing the game. That's how quickly the game is changing now. But that's just my approach to it. Whereas other folk are going to want to try and stay up to date as much as possible. And this churn that we're having with the rule set, like I was saying, in my personal opinion, this is by design, in that Games Workshop and their games, their products, they want that to be your hobby, all of it. You know what I mean? So, in my eyes, it's designed so that you have to be so heavily invested into it to stay up to date that you don't have time for other hobby. You have to be that invested in it. And I've distanced myself a bit from it. I've pumped the brakes a bit. I still like 40k. I'm just not as bothered about staying up to date on the knife edge of the points costs and the meta changes. The only interest for me is sort of more of a beer and pretzels approach, where it'll be like, hey, when I go to play me mates, when we play our game Stevo and I play Dim and I play Dread, I'll worry about points changes and stuff like that and rules changes before that, maybe a couple of weeks beforehand. And, we'll hash things out. Are we going to use legacy rules? Where it is? Where are the different rules? Where are all the bits and pieces I need? I'll worry about it then. But for now, I'm sort of spreading out my interest into other war games as well. It just became too much for me personally. And I think you were touching on that about the comment sections in the videos, that seems to be a perception that's cropping up for a lot of people, is that too much is coming too fast, too quick for some folk, and other people are loving it. So it depends which side of the fence you're kind of sitting on in that regard.
Yeah, I think you've touched on a lot of important points there, and it was funny in reading some of the comment section, particularly in other Orc groups that I'm a fan of, but we like the Orc community best. But I've shared in some larger groups, and some of the comments were interesting there. There were comments of a lot of people sort of agreeing with our way of thinking, that it's gotten a bit too much and it's a bit hard to keep up with, and it is driving people away from the hobby. It really is. Make no mistake, it really is pushing people away and driving people a little bit mad, because we're all busy. We have other hobbies, we have work, we have families, we have other commitments and other things going on in our lives. And that's not to say that we don't enjoy playing the game and we enjoy this hobby, but not many of us are able to commit that much time to it. And I think it's a lot of other people pointed out in comments as well that this is better than the days of yore, where we would get a codex come out that was broken, or we'd get some kind of rule that was broken, and it would be several years before that got addressed, and you were just stuck with it. And I agree with that point. I agree that also is a bad place to be at, and that fixes are just required sometimes. It's going to happen with such a complex game, with several different factions, things being added into it all the time. There's going to be conflicts, there's going to be errors in rules and errors in points and things, which is another point that we probably need to address a little bit later on, because we're getting quite a few of them lately. They've always been there, but we're getting a lot of them lately. There were other comments as well. One that I particularly sort of took note of was in my post in one of the groups, someone just simply commented, "Haters gonna hate." Let me make this very clear, and to anyone who watches my channel, who's watched my content and knows me, knows that that's about as far from the truth as you can get. I am not a hater of GW, and I'm not a hater of 40k, but I can be critical at times, and there are concerns with the game, and there are concerns with GW's direction sometimes. And I think it's things like this that do push people away and confuse people. And it's very hard. Some of us only get to play every now and again. It could be months between games. And I've had situations where I've played someone, and the next time we're playing with different points. We've got different tweaks to the rules. And the next time we play, there are different changes to the rules again. During the game, if a rules discrepancy comes up or a disagreement comes up at something and we need to check the rules, we're not just checking in the rule book and checking in our codex, because we know that that's pretty much out of date. We have to get our phones out, get our tablets out, look at the downloaded FAQs. Oh, no, I definitely saw this rule somewhere, and they're sort of tapping their watch, like, come on, we need to crack on with the game. Yeah, no, come on, I've got this rule somewhere. And you're having to find these rules, and it's really confusing. Because currently I'm using the Orc Codex, I'm using the rulebook, I'm using the Saga of the Beast book, and I'm also looking on my phone at the recent FAQs and updates to see which of the rules in those books isn't actually the rules. The rules are on my phone now in the update, or through Battlescribe, or through, if you've got it, the official 40k list building app. It's kind of crazy, and I see Dim in the comments section saying the White Knight's a cultist though, fanboy's gonna fanboy, and that's very much what you're gonna get. Oh, there we go.
Sorry.
No worries. That's a minor issue with what we've dealt with at the beginning of this video.
Pretty much.
So, yeah, there's a middle ground, I think, that can be struck. these FAQs and updates are required, and there are some things that needed fixing. In my recent video, I spoke very fondly about how I'm so pleased that the custom force field got fixed. In how when they rebought out the Big Mech with KFF in the Saga of the Beast, they completely changed the way the custom force field worked. It granted a save in combat as well as shooting, which it had never done before. It only granted that save to units of the same clan. So in some ways it was a buff, and in other ways it was a bit of a nerf. But the more important thing to me on that one was that it didn't make sense lore-wise. It didn't feel like it was casting a bubble out and casting that protection. And so it's great that they fixed that. It's great that they dropped the points of the Big Mech by 15 points. That makes him a really strong contender now in the HQ. So I'm not for one second criticising the updates themselves. Although I think some other factions are. I think Tau got a bit screwed with some of their drones and things. They've kind of doubled in price, and Tau are in a bit of a shit spot at the moment, so they're feeling pretty butthurt. I'm not so sure about other factions. I'm sure every faction and every player from those factions has got a different story to tell, whether this update has been good for them or bad for them. But there's a bigger issue than whether it's good or bad. It's an issue of like how constant it is, and just as you're getting used to the rule set, because these are complicated rules. Specifically for people who maybe are casual gamers. I know that can be a dirty term sometimes, but they're not heavily into it. You know,
Filthy casuals.
They dip in and out of the hobby. They like to play the occasional game. Maybe they only play 1 or 2 games a year, or maybe a bit more. But or maybe they play other games.
Yeah. Or maybe they have a fucking life, like
maybe they have a life. You know, maybe they have a life. And the reason I sort of, like you say, I sort of push deep into it is because of the channel. I like to provide a service to Orc players out there and kind of break down some of these rules and explain it to people and talk about some, list things. So my channel becomes almost like a resource for Orc players to be able to look at and see the latest news and see the latest updates. And, like Dredd himself has said to me that he likes to hear about these new rules changes or points changes from my videos rather than reading it, because he prefers to take that information in from video form and from listening to it rather than reading it in a book. So I like to provide that service. If I wasn't doing the channel, I think I'd be in a similar situation to you, where I wouldn't be delving so deeply into it, especially at the moment with COVID and lockdowns and things where we can't play anyway.
Yeah, knowing you're not going to get a game in, and by the time you do that, it's like...
And hell, by the time we do get our next game in, we may have a new Orc Codex, because we have no idea how long the lockdown's going to last. We don't know what the time frame is for a new Orc Codex. That's going to bring changes with it again. So we've just started 2021. We've got one set of changes, and we're likely to get another set of changes, and that's just for our faction, not to mention all the other factions out there. And I just think it's got a bit ridiculous. And I agree with you that it's by design, but I think it's a risky way for them to run it, because on one hand, yes, you are kind of pulling your customers and hobbyists in and getting them to go onto the community site daily to get their fix of latest updates and news and stay on top of things. And people that are diehard like 40k fans and competitive gamers things are going to lap that up and just keep on top of that. But even a lot of them, I would say, are getting a bit tired of it. And I agree with people that say, it's better than the old days where we got stuck with rules that were broken and they were just left broken for so long. But there has to be a bit of a... Let's balance. Get sensible about this. Let's just slow it down just a little bit and just ease up. And it's difficult for me because you've all seen me and Dim disagree with each other a lot on these kind of issues and these points and that. And I know he's brought these kind of points up before, how it's geared towards the competitive gamer and stuff. And I can't disagree with him on this one. It's a bit too much. And I think GW are at risk of pushing away a lot of players and losing customers because they just get a bit sick of it. And this has been very true of yourself, hasn't it? You've recently, over the last year or so, have kind of moved away from 40k. You haven't abandoned it completely, but you've moved away towards BattleTech and other games.
Yeah, I've started to look primarily at BattleTech, because they brought out a new line of plastic miniatures that because that was one of the things I didn't like about BattleTech back like 10, 11 years ago when I tried it initially. Their plastic miniatures were quite frankly terrible.
Agreed.
But they've uh, they've upped their game in that regard. But it's a point that I think I was talking to you before we got into the video, where it's a case of with other war games, BattleTech, for example, if someone played the game 20 years ago and came back to it now, there's enough of the components that are still, there's enough of the core components that are still roughly the same that they'll be able to understand how to play the game.
Yeah.
As it's a rule set that's sort of updated over time. It's an FAQ'd, and literally like the latest print would be an update of the previous print. So instead of what we're getting with Games Workshop with these grand changes with some editions, like for instance from 2nd edition to 3rd edition, where there's been a massive change, or from 7th edition to 8th edition, where there's been a massive change, you'll still be able to play some of these other war games and get into them pretty easily. Whereas with Warhammer, the editions are coming more often now. So we're getting them every 2-3 years, that sort of thing. And then in and of the editions themselves, there's changes where it can be like maybe you're a year into an edition, and you'll pick up the rulebook. Because even if we look at 8th edition, for example, it's like so much of what was in the rulebook had changed, and some of the core mechanics were changed and then changed back in regards to like jump pack units and being able to fly over other units and all this. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's so many bits and pieces that you're trying to keep track of that flip flop and change. And then on top of that, there's points cost. And then you're trying to think to yourself, all right, well, points cost change. Oh, how do I compose an army now? That's changed as well. You know what I mean? It's the lack of consistency in how the rules are presented it's not a consistent basis. Even the format chops and changes. And then there's the lack of consistency we're getting in the rules writing itself. Because it's coming that hard and fast, I don't think it would be so much of an issue if it was of consistent quality and consistent through the content. But like even when we're talking about Saga the Beast and we were looking at like the custom force field and it was different from the one in the Codex, and it's like, well, what was it like? And then so you're buying books and then you're literally waiting for an errata or an FAQ like a couple of weeks later to fix any conflicts or changes in that book that you bought on top of whatever changes are happening in the greater meta. So it's a lot to keep track of, and
it really is.
I just couldn't be arsed. I couldn't be bothered, mate. It's like I'll worry about playing a game when I go to play with me mates, or if I wanted to sign up for a tournament, which I could do in the future. I'm not gonna put it off altogether. I'm not gonna say I'll never play in a tournament, but then I'll decide how deeply I want to invest in knowing the rules then. Whereas now I've distanced myself a bit, and I'll take a beer and pretzels approach where I'll be like, if I'm going to play 40k, it's going to be a casual game, either with my mates or someone who's looking for a casual game in the local area when we're no longer in lockdown. And I'll worry about it then. You know what I mean? I'll worry about it in that regard. Like even our list compositions where we're doing our 1,500 point armies, I get a feeling we're going to have to, that's going to be changed again.
Yeah.
Before we get a game in.
Yes,
like you were saying.
Yeah. Already since that's a video upcoming. We've recorded a video of the War Boss show talking about our army lists, and that video will be coming up soon. And the lists we reveal there are our 1,500 point lists. At the time of doing that, now they're already going to need some slight tweaking, because there hasn't been a huge amount of points changed for us, but there's been some, and it's going to affect some of, or possibly all of our lists a little bit, and we're going to have to tweak them a little bit. But like you say, by the time we play, we're likely to have a codex and have more changes on top of that. So your approach at sort of distancing yourself from it for a little while is probably going to pay off, because you might not even have to worry about these current points, because they'll only be there for a little while until the codex comes out, and then you'll be going with that. Until 2 weeks later, when an errata and fixes come out for that codex. They've taken an approach. I see GW as trying to take an approach similar to the computer gaming industry. So let's just take a game, for example, like Call of Duty. You play Call of Duty, Online, and there's regular updates and fixes and things to that, and patches. And it might, a weapon that you really enjoy using, you get an update and then the weapon has been nerfed. And it's slower firing, or it's less accurate, or it's weaker, or whatever. And so the computer game industry has been doing this for a long time now, and they release games in a unfinished state, much like GW's books and codexes, and then patch them later on. The difference is with a computer game, the computer game takes care of all of that for you. You just worry about playing. You run around and you shoot your gun and you do your stuff. And you may notice some things have changed and things, but you don't have to memorize that and do that. The computer game does all the game mechanics for you.
Yeah, it does the heavy lifting for you.
Tabletop gaming's different. You have to know all the rules. You have to know all the changes. And that's a lot of stuff to store in your brain. And should you really be considering all of that stuff while you're playing? Or would you rather all your thought power and all your brain capacity is spent on the tactics and the strategy within that game, rather than trying to remember, that's, doesn't work like that now, and that's different. And it's very confusing, and it's very hard to keep up to date with. It really is. And I think it's hit home even harder this time because loads of us haven't managed to get many games in, if any at all, of 9th. So the fact that 9th has come out not too long ago, and we've all sort of been reading up on the rules and getting used to it, and maybe some of us have had a few games in. I managed to get a few games in. Other people haven't been so lucky. But
I haven't played it yet.
There you go. So the 9th edition rule set that was released, you'll never play because it's changed since then. So what's in the rule book to you is already out of date. Like they've changed some rules within the game itself, like the way open top vehicles work. That came out with a glaring error that units within an open top vehicle could shoot out and everything, but they weren't able to use any abilities, and that means their own special abilities. So just for an example, tank busters within a truck wouldn't be able to re-roll against vehicles because that's an ability. And as soon as that was revealed to me, I'm like, well, that's clearly an error. That's not an intended rule. And sure enough, it's been fixed in this update. Great. That's brilliant that it's been fixed. It shouldn't have been there in the first place. It really shouldn't have been there in the first place. And it's very easy to say that. I know it's very easy to say that. To say, look, get it all right, get it right first time. I'm willing to accept some errors. I'm willing to accept some typos, but it's the amount of them, and sometimes
to the extent,
the obviousness of them. Sometimes to a player, you read it and it's one of the first. Hang on, that's not right, and you spot it straight away, and you think, well, why haven't they spotted this? Because I'm one person. And this is very rich from two bald knobs who can't get a live stream working properly. I understand. But we're two guys.
Get it right with this.
We're two guys sitting in our bedrooms, trying to get our computers to work and stuff. We're not a big, the biggest company in the wargaming industry, with loads of staff and loads of editors and loads of writers, and so. Yeah, it's frustrating. And like their app, there's been issues with that. A lot of points and things have been wrong in that. Even within this update, the Knob Warbikers were listed in two different places in two different points values. So in my video, I say that they've gone up by 5 points. That may not actually be the case because they've been listed in one section as the same cost and in another section as 5 points higher. So at this point, literally at this point, who fucking knows? We need better. We need better because we pay a lot of money for this hobby. And I see Dim's comment there which says, well, they're FAQing FAQs now. So, and yeah, that's how ridiculous it is. We are literally getting erratas and FAQs for erratas and FAQs. And I understand if you're a big fan and you're a defender of GW and you want to jump to the defense of it every time, because there is a camp that would love to criticize everything GW do. And I understand the frustration with that sometimes, especially within the social media groups and stuff. As soon as you post anything, there's always someone ready to tear them apart and bring them down, and you're like, oh god, this again. I get that, but equally on the other side, you've got like the sort of fanboys who will literally defend everything and anything they do and can't see any fault in it. And we're not criticizing them on this because we're haters. We're criticizing them on this because we love the hobby and we've been in it for years, and we want it to be in a good place. And I love Ninth Edition. The games I've had have been great fun. A lot of the fixes they're doing are positive, good fixes. They're good things that, from there's very little of what I've read in the FAQs that I didn't like. I thought, yeah, that makes sense. That's better. The frustration comes from, couldn't that have just been in there in the first place? I think it is partly in their move towards the competitive scene, which is obviously a big money maker for them. But I think by focusing on that so much, you're hurting the casual market and the narrative market and the more fluff and lore orientated and the beer and pretzels market. You're hurting that part, and I think you've got to be careful, GW. I think you need to slow it down just a little bit, and also make it a bit more easier to read, more accessible, more digestible. Get these updates out in a manner that works better. It clashes with everything. It clashes with the fact that you're still very much doing print editions of codexes and rulebooks. And if they were all online and updatable, and these updates could, you bring up your rulebook on your iPad or whatever, and then there's an update for this, and it would update and it would change the rules on these, and to a degree they are working towards that by the look of it. But then they've still got these print editions alongside, which they charge a lot of money for, especially the special editions and stuff. And they're kind of, within a very short time after purchasing these, they're kind of obsolete, and they're there for no more good than being a sort of a resource for sort of inspiration and lore and the writings and the artwork and stuff within.
But that's it, though. You're kind of hitting one of the issues I have on the head there, in that they're selling the product as a physical product and a book, and it being updated and changed so often makes that product that you physically own pretty much redundant for then playing the game. Now, you're going to get that to a certain extent, and I think with a rule set that's live and updating, I think people would be happy enough if that was happening maybe once a year or 6 months, or even quarterly, where there's minor changes, but every year we have the that sort of thing being changed or fixed, but more so trying to be consistent with it, because that's how I look at the rule books now. Because it's like, how much does a rule book retail for? Was it like 35, 40 quid?
Yeah, it's about £30. So maybe out of 35, 40 euros. Yeah.
And at the state that their rules are being chopped and changed, and physically, in my personal opinion, that rule book isn't more than 10 quid to me. It's just the paperweight, because I know by the time I go to play a game, so much of it's going to be changed.
Yeah. Beforehand.
So like, why would I spend 40 or 50 quid on a rule book when I know that when I go to get time to play it, because I know that the current global situation, I know I'm not going to get to play a game of 40k for a long time. Maybe not even this year, depending on how things pan out.
It's quite possible with the way the world is at the moment.
So, we're going to be a year and a half into an edition, and I still haven't, invested anything into it, because I know it will have changed so much, which is, it's a pity, because I'm not as invested into the game as much as I used to be. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of kind of, it's kind of sad, really. You know what I mean? It's something that's been such a large part of your hobby life for so long, like 20 plus years, and the interest that you have for it, being so invested. Because I can remember back in 4th edition, I'd nearly be able to give you the points costs of the various units, the war gear, the transports off the top of my head. And we had the codex for long enough that you'd be able to know that. Whereas
I could still tell you from third, fourth, and fifth using that Necron codex that I used all the way through those 3 editions of the game. Still to this day, I can tell you, Necron Warrior 18 points, Pariah was 36 points. I remember that they're burned into my memory because I had that codex for so long and it didn't change. It was there, the rule, the points and stuff, and and some of the points seemed a little bit lopsided, and some things, and so you were stuck with it for a long time. But
you weren't looking at your codex all the time after a while.
No,
you weren't having to constantly reference.
After a while. Yeah, I had it
because you knew your army and you focused on playing the game. Yeah. Now, obviously, the amount that you played then or the amount that we play now, there's going to be multiple variables.
Yeah.
But the fact that there's some consistency, some longevity with the rule sets, that's my main issue. 2 years for an edition or 3 years for a new edition that has massive changes. It's just too quick for me personally for the amount of time I get to spend on 40k or the war game, or any war game in particular. If I started playing a new war game and it was the same issue of every 2 to 3 years we're changing the edition, and the edition is changing so much from the start that by the time it's phased out, it looks totally different. That's, for me personally, that's just too much.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why you wanted to go on and talk about this topic specifically, Stevo, is that seems to resonate with quite a lot of people as well.
Oh, definitely. Like I said, when I sort of said to you that I would like to cover this topic on our show, was because of partly the success of the last video I did, and more so than the amount of views was the comments within it, seeing that so many people had felt the same way as me, of just confusion with it. And you see in these updated points, but they were trying to figure out, okay, so they're the new points. Is that more or less than it was before? Is that because a lot of things appeared to have changed, but hadn't. Their points cost had gone up or gone down, but the war gear had gone up or down by the same amount, or it was now included with it. So it was very difficult at a glance to see, oh, that's more expensive than it was before, or that's cheaper than it was before. And so they've already changed. It looks like they're moving towards, whereas in the codexes we've currently got, you've got the list of the units, and then you've got a list of the war gear, and you've got your war gear broken down, telling you what points each bit of war gear is. Whereas now it looks like they're moving more towards war gear broken in with each unit. So just for an example, this isn't the case, but just as an example of what could bring, a rocket launcher may cost more to put on a Death Dread than it does to put on a Tank Buster, or a big shooter may cost more on a Killer Can than it does to be put on a Boy. So they may have separate costs within there. And I can see why they're doing that, because a certain weapon is better in the hands of the unit that's using it, if it's got a better ballistic skill or a weapon skill, for example. So I get that, and that does sort of seem like a move towards a better balance. But the rule book hasn't been out that long, guys. Like, just get used to what we're working with. I don't know. I think I'd rather stick with something that's a little bit, overcosted or undercosted, and just bear with it for a while before it's changed again, just for simplicity's sake. It's while you've been chatting, I've been looking at the comments, and people are debating in there, and we've got some people that are very much on our way of thinking and stronger in the case of Dim, and people that are sort of fighting the corner for GW. And I saw someone commented there saying GW are getting a lot more right than they're getting wrong these days, and I kind of agree with that to a degree. I think some of the miniatures and stuff that are coming out of them are beautiful, and they're creating some awesome miniatures. They've always been good at doing that. I really like 9th edition. I'm going to bang the drum of 9th edition. I've really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed 8th edition, but I think 9th is an improvement on that. It's pretty much the same game, but it's refined things and tweaked things. And The games I've had have been great fun. They're incredibly objective driven. The objective is more important than any edition I've ever played before. It seems so much more important to play tactically now than just destroying an army off the table, as you could win games in the past by doing that. It seems now much more focused and objective. I love that. There's a lot of things I like about it. I like the freedom in which you can create your lists. You can create very themed lists because you've got kind of freedom of using different detachments. You're not restricted to a force org chart. So you can create kind of elite style armies. You can create a speed freak themed army. You know what you want, everything on bikes and stuff. You can do that. So you've got a lot of freedom of how you do your army, and that's all positive stuff. And I like all that. And so on one hand, I'm criticising Games Workshop for the direction they're going in some ways, but I like the product. I really like the product. And I've been a fan of GW for, well, since second edition, since I first got my copy of Space Crusade and played Hero Quest. I've been a fan of Games Workshop without even realising it. Too young to realise, but you know, once I got that second edition box and couldn't figure out how to play it, and then I got into third edition and actually learnt the game properly and properly got into it, and I've been a fan ever since. I disappeared out of the hobby during 6th and 7th edition. I'd like to say it's mostly because I hated those editions. It's not really. It's just kind of life got in the way, but it luckily coincided with 2 really shit editions. Because I did dabble in them a little bit and didn't like what I saw and didn't like the direction the game was taking, with real moves towards power plays and using formations, and it was incredibly unbalanced. And I feel that in one hand, there's the sceptical side of me that thinks Games Workshop are doing this by design to keep us hooked in and keep us invested and keep us spending our money and spending our time. And every time we're looking on their community site to see what the latest update is, we're also seeing all their advertisements and the new miniatures, and we're going, oh, new shiny, spend money, spend money. And I think there is an element of that. I think there's also another element where they genuinely are trying to make it balanced more. They're trying, because they're catering towards the competitive scene, which demands balance, which demands a really tight rule set and tight points balances, so everything's fair, so that these tournaments are run in the most fair way possible. And so I think that it's commendable that they're trying to do that to a degree, but they're a contradiction, because we all know they're a miniatures company and they want to sell miniatures. And I think the game, they've said themselves they're a miniatures company. The game comes second, and that it's pretty obvious to all of us that they use rules and points in helping to sell miniatures. They bring out a new shiny miniature. It's generally, for the most part, going to have very good rules. That's not always the case. They do bring out new shiny miniatures.
Yeah, but this is the thing, like, they're not even consistent with that. Like,
no, they're not. They're not. I mean, we had our when the Gorkanaut and Morkanaut came out.
Oh, good.
New shiny miniature and that. Terrible rules.
Jesus.
Terrible miniature. Didn't do well at all. They're in a good place now, but generally speaking, a lot of things they do try and use the rule sets to help sell the miniatures. And they've been doing that for years. They've been trying to show that this new thing is stronger than what was before, so you want to go out and buy it. They even did it in the old battle reports in White Dwarf. If you saw a battle report in White Dwarf years ago, and it was with a brand new faction against an existing faction, before you even opened the magazine, you knew who had won the battle report every time, every single time. So they've always kind of used that strategy of like, look, this new thing, you want it because not only does it look good, but it's really good on the table as well. And so it's a difficult one. We're never ever gonna get true balance. I think it's more balanced now than some people will scoff at this, but I do think the game is probably more balanced now than it's ever been. But
I think they could if they wanted to. We have the technology. I'm not saying it would be easy, but if the gaming system was algorithmic, like if they had an algorithm for it, for setting up certain, if this equals this in value and points, and this is your, as soon as they set up a unit as the base of points costs, then you can compare anything, and then, if they
you
wanted
could
to.
punch it into their computer. They got a big database computer's algorithm. You punch in like strength this, toughness this, weapon skill this, and you punch all the info of this new unit into it. It goes prints you out. This is how many points it should cost.
Yeah, and
yeah.
The 1980s with the like green and white paper print off going. Yeah.
I'm seeing pictures of like Professor Frink from Simpsons on there. Hey.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, obviously then even from that point it gets harder because then you've got to take in special rules into account, which are harder to.
They are harder to do,
out,
but we're living in the age of like crazy technology where people are coming up with concepts of AI and AI learning and. Do you know what I mean? It's, if they put the money into it and if Games Workshop really wanted to, this game could be nigh on perfectly balanced in the day and age we live in now because of abilities, values, they can all be quantified. And
but they've taken too long to move with the times. They've only just recently have they released a list building app, a proper list building app. That is got a lot of teething issues and a lot of issues, and you've got to pay for it. You've got to pay for it, and there are free ones out there like Battlescribe, which have been serving the community well. And Battlescribe has its issues. I don't particularly like the layout of it, and sometimes I don't find it very user friendly. But it's a free app that's sort of built and maintained by the community, and it's updated pretty regularly. And I bet them boys are busy at the moment with all these new updates again having to. But they've taken so long to move towards that in one hand, but yet they're really pushing at it with the constant updates and things. But they haven't set the infrastructure there to accommodate that yet. They haven't laid the groundwork of like we're going to move like codexes towards digital things that we can update. And so if we get something wrong in the codex or we need to tweak something, rebalance it, we can do that. They haven't laid that all out first. They seem to be chasing their own tails with that, and it's a difficult situation. It's a complicated situation, I think.
It's not easy. Under no illusions, like you said, we're just two blokes with our opinions, but it's doable as well. You know what I mean? It's just about like whether you're putting the cart before the horse and what's being prioritized before other things, and maybe some people are quite happy with how things are going with Games Workshop. They're happy with the rate of the updates and the direction that they're going in, and more power to you. We're not when we're talking about the hobby and maybe we're a bit critical about something because we're not personally happy with it, doesn't mean that other people can't enjoy it the way it is. If you're really loving it at this moment in time, more power to you. We're not trying to take that away. We're just noticing that not everyone is of the same opinion, and we're here to discuss the hobby that we enjoy and get a bit of banter out of it, get a bit of discussion and a bit of stimulation. Maybe, we can come up with some constructive feedback, and improve the game for everyone, naysayers or not. You know what I mean? I think that's what it boils down to at the end of the day.
Definitely. I've got some people in the comments section that are saying I'm echoey on the mic for some reason. I do apologise, guys, if it's still doing that now. Hopefully everything's fine. We've got some people getting a little bit heated within the comments section. I kind of had a feeling that may happen. Keep it
heated with us or heated amongst themselves?
Themselves, I believe.
Oh Jesus! Gonna have to throw an ice bucket or two in there. Calm down, lads.
It's all right. We've got Dim in there. He's acting as the runt herd and lashing the grots into good behaviour and
bashing heads, is he?
And it does get heated, and it does divide the community sometimes in things like this.
It can do, but that's to be expected though, because we're invested in the hobby and we're invested in it emotionally. Do you know what I mean? Because it's important to us. It becomes part of our life to varying degrees, depending on how each individual has invested themselves. So you're invested into it, both your time, your money, and emotionally you're invested into the game, all on varying levels. So it can be expected when people feel so strongly about the game or the hobby or any specific subject that things can get heated. You know, that is to be expected. Like we're expected to invest ourselves, so much of ourselves into the game that is expected of us. You know, to an extent, it ties into many aspects of the hobby. Whether you're playing your army painted or unpainted, the difference between how much time you've invested in your hobby when it's unpainted to when it is painted, your army, they're very, you can see the difference. Like, that's just one aspect of it, in how we're expected to invest ourselves into the game. The rules and the rate of the rules changes and staying up to date with the rules changes, that would be another aspect that we're expected to stay invested. And, both mental energy and then time as well in that regard. So it all comes down to each individual and how much they prioritize different aspects of the hobby and how much they're willing to invest themselves, as to what stance we'll all take. So I've taken a slightly different stance to Stevo in that regard, into what I'm willing to invest at this moment in time personally, both time-wise and, just cognitively. But then that's different for everyone. But that's the interesting thing about it.
We all get something different from the hobby in the game. And I want to read a couple of the comments out, because there's a few people hit on some interesting points. I read a comment quite a while back. I want to just say it now. Brack the Warboss, when we were talking early on, saying about casual gamers, he said, "Me, casual? Never. Always a black tie event for me." That made me laugh. I love that. But Colin Mack here says... he says, Jeff was right there. Probably should be two versions, a balanced narrative game and then a stripped back ball to the wall tournament edition that is being constantly tweaked. And I see that point, and it's a point I've seen mentioned by a couple of people. I don't agree with that myself personally, though, because I disagree with the whole move towards
splitting the game.
Yeah, I don't.
We saw that with open play and match play, though, and most people just want the match.
I'm really against dividing the community into different sub-camps. And the community does that themselves to a certain degree, obviously.
We collect different factions, of course we do. There's tribalism in that regard.
Definitely. And there are people that enjoy a campaign. There are people that love the tournament scene. There are people that just like fun, chilled out games, not take it too seriously. We all play in a different way. I have always been a strong sort of a fan of all aspects of the game, and I've always enjoyed. I've loved the creativity. I love the conversion and the making fluffy lists. But I also like making competitive lists, and I like the challenge of combining the two. I like to make a themed list that can do some good stuff on the table, and when I play to win, and I play competitively. Fun is more important, but I don't throw competitiveness out of the window, because that's kind of the point of a game, isn't it? Even when you play a board game, I was playing Snakes and Ladders with my kids earlier, and they all get competitive and they all want to win, Everyone plays to win. Anyone that says they don't is lying. We all play to win, but it's more important to some people than others. And so I've always loved the thematic lists. I love the narrative thing, and I love playing in things like campaigns and story-driven missions, and and all of that. But I also like to play competitively. So I wouldn't like that myself, because no matter which of the two avenues I chose, I would be missing out on one part of the hobby that I really enjoy. So if I went down the narrative list and they split off strongly in that direction, then I would have fun in that area, but I would be missing something. I'd be missing that competitiveness, that competitive streak within me, and that challenging part of the game. And if I went straight down the the ultra power gamer competitive list, I would mourn the loss of themed lists and being able to make a fluffy list and put something in. I put things in my lists. I think that I could put something better for the points in there, but I just really like that. That's why I've used killer cans so often, because I just love the miniatures and I love them, and so I try and always squeeze them into my list. And a big mech in Mega Armor isn't as good for the points as a normal big mech, but I like him. He fits the theme of my army, so I like to put him in there. But it's. So I really think We got some more comments in there. Please keep it nice, old Mighty Joe in the comments section. No need for that. Because someone has a different opinion does not make them an idiot. That kind of talk gets nobody anywhere. And the internet brings out, the worst in people sometimes.
The best and the worst.
Yes, the best and that is true. That is true. And that's what I mean. You don't want to divide a community because we're already a niche community.
We're more than capable of that ourselves.
We're the weird kid at school. We're the weird nerdy kid at school.
I don't know. Maybe back in mine and your day, we were the weird kid at school. But I think
we still are to a degree. I still think the vast majority are into football or sports, and things, and chasing girls and stuff. And the kid that's into the little niche hobby and painting little models is always going to be seen as the nerdy type of that. So the last thing you want to do is take that niche community and divide it up further, because it can be challenging for a lot of people, especially people that live in small villages and live out in the sticks and don't know anyone else in their area that plays the game. It's hard. And so if you find a community that plays the game and then you get there and then they're playing a version of the game that you're just not really into, and that's going to be heartbreaking. It's going to be devastating. And I've been in that situation where I've played with friends and things, and they want to play in a certain way, and I've been saddened that we can't play in a sort of a different way. And I've played with competitive players, and I've brought up the idea of, how about we do like a game where, like, I don't know, you outnumber me 2-1, and I've just got to survive in that. And they're like, no, they're just not really into it. They don't really want to play that narrative type game. But that'd be really fun. They're just like, nah, and so. I think the responsibility does lie with a player to a certain degree. You find the kind of players that you enjoy playing with, and that's always going to happen. But I would really like to see the end. It's never going to happen, but I'd like to see it lessened. The sort of battle between narrative players and competitive players, and us being sort of set against each other, because it's not helpful for the hobby. It's not healthy. It's not good. You see it in the comment sections and stuff, and people tearing lumps of each other in forums and on social media about a game with little plastic soldiers. It's a bit nuts, really. But yeah, these these updates and stuff, I'm sure, as we see, they please a lot of people. A lot of people are really happy that these updates come out and they lap them up, and then other people are like, again, really?
Yeah, but that's the thing, though. It's like that, what aspect of the hobby you're really into, and some people are really enjoy the game changing because maybe they play the game a lot more than others do around them. So, rules changing and having to stay up with it and being invested in that regard into that aspect of the hobby. If that's really their thing, maybe there are some people out there who really enjoy that. I'd expect there are, and they're probably in their element at the moment. But it's not for everyone. But that's just the way it is at the moment. I think myself personally, I'd like to see a balance between the old days and the new days of what we have. So yeah. I don't want to see it go back to the old days where it's like 8 years between a codex or whatever else.
No,
I don't want to see that. But also from
unless it's a really good codex, like a 3rd edition Necron codex, and I'll be happy with that.
I don't want to see it going too far the other extreme. The pendulum has swung the other way now, and I think it's too much for me at the moment. That's why I've backed off. But yeah, it'll just come down to each individual and their own preference in that regard as to
I see some good comments. Orc Stuff says, thing about snakes and ladders, the rules for snakes don't come out 1 year and the rules for ladders a year later. Yeah, I had to stop the kids because we had to download the FAQ to say that, if you roll a 6 now and you land on a snake, you actually go up the snake instead of down it. And yeah, it's and we've all got if we are playing those friendly games and stuff, there's nothing stopping you just saying, we'll just play the rules from the rulebook and the rules from the codex. You can do that, and you can ignore all the FAQs and stuff and say, look, we'll just play vanilla 9th edition, and we'll play the vanilla Orc Codex, and whatever codex you've got, we'll just play them as they are then, and we'll play with them rules to keep it simple and not stop the confusion. All the points and everything in there, we've got them in the book, and we don't need to worry about any fixes or FAQs. And I mean, there's nothing stopping people playing older editions of the game, which some people still do.
You can do, but I think the issue you're going to come across in that situation, though, Steve, is that's not what is expected of players.
No,
you're expected to know the latest rules, the latest points, the latest errata and FAQ, and play the latest edition. That is the expectation with playing Warhammer 40,000.
It is. You're right, and that is kind of my expectation as well. I'm guilty of that.
Yeah.
I want to play the rules,
but that's also by design, though. That is by design. We are encouraged to have this approach to the hobby because that means they can sell us new editions.
Well, so in the comments, I'm looking in and put some people are. HobbyGit says emotional investment plus time. Something simple and trivial becomes more important with more emotional investment. It means a lot to people, and I do get that side of thinking. It's like when a movie franchise or a game franchise that you love, and it's your escape from the stresses of real life, and it means a lot to you. And then to see it, a movie put in the hands of a different director and different actors, and they completely fuck with the formula of it and ruin the franchise for you. I've seen that happen to several of my beloved franchises, and it is
no idea what you're talking about there.
Well, I know the obvious one that we all know, but there are many more besides. And it is heartbreaking to see it happening. And I've got angry about it. I mean, like, what the fuck have they done to it? They've killed it. They've ruined it. And so I do get it. And I guess if the game had moved in a direction that I didn't like, maybe I would feel like that. So because I'm enjoying 9th, I guess it's very easy for me to say to people, well, it's very easy for me to say, look, don't get so angry about it. But I'm not angry because I'm enjoying it. But I guess if they're not, then I can, I've got to sort of see it from their perspective and understand why they're not enjoying it so much. Because it has changed a lot, like you said, BattleTech is essentially the same game that it's been for years.
Core aspects of it, but there have been rules up changes and erratas. For instance, like this current print rule of the rule book. If you go back to the previous print, you can see that a lot of it's the same, but some things have changed. So they'll tie in erratas and FAQs into the core print run, and then by and large, the core rules are still the same though. Mm-hmm. So you'll know if you were playing the previous edition, you already know how to play the game. It's just specifics of the rule set. And you'll find that it's like when we were playing 40k and the editions lasted 5 years or more. You knew the core rules. It was only specific instances where you weren't sure that you'd have to pull the rulebook out. Yeah. It's like, this really weird situation that we're not too sure about. Yeah. We'll pull up the rules and we look. Yeah, BattleTech's like that for me. It's like you can do crazy stuff, but like the base, the normal day-to-day gaming of it, the core mechanics are fine. It's you're pulling out the rule book for when something very specific happens that doesn't happen that often. You know what I mean? But but the rules are there and it's pretty straightforward and all well written out. So I'm happy in that regard. I wish 40k went more in that direction, but that's sort of a different direction to what they're currently going in. So we don't know what the future holds. Maybe we'll see.
Probably more of the same. More updates and more FAQs. But hopefully, I mean, in doing this video, I think I just wanted to let the community come in and sort of join us in this discussion. I see the comment section is going in that and get the conversation going about it, because I noticed that a lot of people felt the same way. And a lot of people wanted to shoot the conversation down. Like I responded to the person on the group that said haters will be haters, and I commented and I said, look, it's not hating. I'm a big lover of the game, far from it. And if you've got a different view, please come and join us on the video and share your views, because it'd be good to have the debate and have the discussion. And I think hopefully the debate reaches out wider and people do discuss it and talk about this, and this does reach GW's ears, and maybe think, maybe we are going a little bit too much with this, and maybe we could slow it down a little bit, and maybe we could maybe proofread our books a little bit more and, not print them out and send them a package of all like, yep, send that off to the publisher, that's good to go. And just get the points right and get the rules right and just edit them a little bit more and, and allow us to absorb the rules and play some games before you change it on us again. Just to slow down a little bit, just a little bit. It can be a bit much, but yeah, like I say, certainly not a hater. Probably the first time I've been accused of that, actually. Usually accused of being a fanboy, or put tooting the old horn of the hype train, which I do, and I get excited.
You and that hype train, sweet. I have visions of like a Lego train just with your face on a Lego man just off the side of a cliff. It's like whoop, whoop, hype. God.
I certainly do, and that train has led me down some dark paths before. It's led me to Disappointmentville, population Stevo.
It's just got that many rockets strapped to the back of it. It's painted red. You know what I mean? Go faster, stripes and everything. Just fucking.
You wait. As the rumours and the reveals of a new 9th edition of Codex comes, I will be boarding that train wholeheartedly still, because I still get excited for this hobby, and I've still got as much love for it now as I ever did. It's been an important part of my life since childhood, and there's been periods of my life where I haven't had it in my life, but I've always kind of had an interest and watched videos on it and read up about it, even when I haven't been directly involved with the hobby. I love the lore of the universe. I think the 40k universe is unlike anything else. And I know it's a completely different topic almost, that the lore itself is changing, and there's updates to the lore, and it's moved forward, and a lot of us have issue with various directions the lore's gone in and certain things, but just taking the lore at its core, the setting and what it is, it's an incredibly rich universe. It's just mad and stupid and ridiculous, but also grim, dark and amazing and just awesome. It's quite unlike anything else, and I think that's one thing that 40k will always have going for it over the competition. There are many games out there that are, the game systems I like the look of and things, but for something for me, that the races within 40k, the orcs obviously, chaos, the demons, all of it, I love it. I lap it up. It's great stuff. But as much of a fanboy as I am, I'm definitely not afraid to wag the finger at GW and throw criticism where it's due. And there is criticism, and there always will be, because there'll always be things they do that I don't agree with, and changes they make to the rules, and changes they make to the lore, and changes to the way they make miniatures, and there's always going to be criticisms and stuff. But
even if they catered 100% to what Stevo wanted, you know what I mean? somebody else won't be happy. This is the thing, you know what I mean? Somebody else won't be happy. But, you can't please all of the people all of the time,
Stevo the hype engine, Hobbygit says in the comments. We should interact with the comments section a little bit, shouldn't we? Let's have a little look, because we've probably talked long enough now, so let's the community have their say a bit. We've got Colin Mack. As I have said, I got a copy of Space Crusade. Rebuilding that with new models. Awesome.
Ooh,
so
nice.
Much nostalgia for that game, my man. Drunken Orc, just play the way you want, excluding tourneys. Very true, but you do have the hurdle of the other player also
persuading,
to play the same way you want to play. Weird Boy, showing my girlfriend my models was hilarious. Used to hide them in my closet. LOL. The old moment when you admit to the missus, you say, it's that big, decision.
She's expecting a dirty magazine stash, and to her horror, there's plastic miniatures that need painting. I didn't know you were one of them.
My missus sees me on my phone all the time and constantly, and 99 times out of 100,
you're looking at a miniature.
I'm either chatting to someone about the hobby, or I'm doing something on my channel to do with the hobby, or I'm reading something about the hobby, and You know, what are we doing in there? And sometimes I just do nothing, just watching porn. You know, just just to say something different for a change. Poke says femboy Stevo, femboy or fanboy? I'm not sure. Colin Mack, tried that with my mates. We could not agree as I wanted to have Primaris riding in rhinos. It's sometimes people like to make their own house rules and stuff for things and that. And house rules, I think they have their place. I think they're great in the sense of I think house rules are great when you want to add an extra dimension to a game, like in a campaign or something, or maybe you want to make some interactive scenery or something, or some kind of special character. But I think I'm just speaking personally, I'm not a great lover of some house rules sometimes, especially if I'm trying to have a balanced game or a competitive game. But
it just depends. Like I wouldn't have a problem with Primaris going in rhinos. I'd just put in the caveat that they take up two spaces, like extra bulky. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
that's what I'd do. I'd be happy with that. But it's trying to convince your mates, though. You know?
Scotto says, my wife straight told me that I was not allowed to get into 40k, and I assured her it was just a few models I wanted to paint.
You sly dog.
Several years later. Weird Boy says, hey Scott, when my girlfriend accepted the hobby, my collection grew and now I have way too many orcs, and she's regretting that, I'm sure.
I don't agree with that statement at all. You can never have too many orcs. Like, what madness.
Poke Cactus says, I was surprised I beat Stevo with the new rumour engine. It's the rumour engine picks.
Beat you with it? Jesus, what do you mean? That sounds terrible.
I haven't covered the rumour engine picks, and I was
rocket.
I was getting some stick from the fellow war bosses at that, saying, I expect you'll be making a video on this soon, and if I could have, I would have. But being in lockdown and stuff with kids at home and stuff, I can't make as many videos as I would like. I don't get the time to research the stuff and put the groundwork in. So it's been challenging to get the content out that I have got out so far.
He's shown his true colours now, Poke. He's shown that he is a filthy casual. That's what the problem is.
The filthy casual.
How dare you have a life?
Brack says, way too many orcs. I don't understand. I think can't have too many. Weird Boy mirrors that. He says there's no such thing. Colin Mack says, till you have too many shelves and the wall caves in. I'm sure that's probably happened to some people. Poke says life always gets in the way. It does. Or maybe the hobby gets in the way of life sometimes, I'm sure lots of people's girlfriends would probably be nodding their head at that. Yeah, you're too bloody right, it does. But I think we've probably said everything there is to say on that, haven't we? I mean,
well, not everything there is to say, but everything we probably have to say at this moment in time about it. Yeah. I'm sure if there's other topics of interest that come true or people want to talk about, feel free to throw in the comment section, or even if you're watching the video back after we've done it live, then hopefully we've edited the terrible bit out at the front.
Yeah, and, the first 25 minutes or so.
Feel free to throw in the comment section what you'd like us to talk about in the next episode of Two Bald Knobs. Hopefully we can get this content out a bit more while we both have the time, and what aspects of the hobby you want to talk about. Or
Tommy Grimbooter makes a point, mate, and something we didn't cover, and something I have to cover with you, because we've got to get your take on it. We have to. I can't believe
we already know. Is this got something to do with Stompers? Does it?
Yes. We've got separate hobby gets in as well. So the Big Mech wasn't the only winner in the FAQ, in the update of the points. The Stomper also had a massive points reduction. It dropped from an extortionate 905 points to a lovely bargain price of 900 points. 5 points cheaper.
You're all a shower of wind-up merchants. The bleeding lot of yous, isn't that? Look, I was only moving some of my rule books today from the top shelf down to the lower one because, the books weigh that much. Of that many Battletech rule books now, it's impressive. But in and amongst there was my 4th edition Apocalypse rule book. And just out of morbid interest, I decided to go and have a look and see how much the Stomper used to cost, you know, back in the day, back when it was 650 points. So, yeah, you know, I don't know, man. I don't know. I even wrote up a script for a video talking about the Stomper, and I think the headline was like Stomper, Death of 1,000 Paper Cuts or something like that. You know what I mean?
It's like it's been chained up somewhere and tortured beyond belief, and it's just now like, you know, it's like, again, I'll go back to The Simpsons. It's that scene where it's like, stop, he's already dead. just stop now. Like, five, I'd have rather they didn't touch it, and I had to laugh because at this point it's just become laughable. But what do they have against it, really? And
I'm just trying to think of like
who greenlit that? Who greenlit that? Why fucking bother? But as lots of people pointed out, you save that 5 points with that Stomper. That means you can
get a whole grot.
You know, and that grot could be the difference maker. It really could.
Definitely. I don't know. I keep thinking of like video montages where you'd fully assemble and paint the Stomper and then push it down the stairs, and each step is an addition of 40k, and it just falls, and every step it hits, it breaks a bit more and breaks a bit more until it's just pieces.
I think at this point it's reached the bottom of the stairs and it's just got like a steamroller just grinding it into powder. It's just, 900 points. 900. I mean, I remember us talking about it in 8th edition, and we were saying, I think at that point it was like 800 points or something, and we were saying that was ridiculous. And it's just madness. I just don't know what, they've got something against it. But yeah, we had to touch on the Stomper point. I can't believe we went through this whole video and didn't mention the Stomper.
I thought I'd gotten away with it there, you know what I mean? It's like, I'll wrap it up now, but I want to have to talk about the Stomper
comment
point.
section reminded me they weren't going to let us get away with it.
Thanks. Yeah, cheers to the lot of yous.
But
it's not a sore point at all.
There you go, guys. Thank you, all of you who were here from the beginning and were very patient with us while we went through the technical difficulties and, you know, got it. For a worrying moment there, I thought we were going to have an embarrassing video where we came on live, fucked up, and then just had to disappear and just abandon the video. We had.
I'm pretty sure we've done that before. Haven't we?
Yeah, we have. We've had to break videos into 2 parts before because of that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like you say, if you're watching this on replay, you may wonder what we're on about, because hopefully by then I would have edited out all our technical difficulties at the beginning. But yeah.
What technical difficulties? What are you talking about?
Exactly.
I have no idea.
The magic of editing. But thank you very much, guys, and yes, stay tuned to our other channel, the War Bosses. Stay tuned to that, because coming up very soon, 1st of February, we'll be revealing our lists to the community and talking about our lists and the lists that are no longer legal because the points are all wrong. But yeah, we'll talk about our lists that will need refinement before we play.
What's that, twice now? It's like, oh yeah, we should meet up and play games. It's like I've had to make 2 lists. I'm gonna have to make a 3rd one now and see.
Yeah.
We should start taking bets on how many lists we think we'll have to make with the rules changes before we actually get a game in. I'm gonna put down for 4, I think. What do you reckon, Stevo?
Mate, I'm just probably gonna just ignore it and carry on converting grot tanks and just have fun kit bashing and building things and painting things. And since I can't play anyone for a while, just not worry about the rules for a while. I think that's probably the best thing for most of us to do. Taking
a leaf out of my book. Fair play.
Yeah, do a bit of that. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for joining us. We'll leave it here. This is 6+ Stevo signing out.
And don't forget to drill your barrels from Scarnier. Take it easy.
Thanks, guys.
Would you like to end this?